Hello and welcome to the Beer Search Party. This is Sean Inman with you, and our second and final pumpkin beer for the month of October comes to us from Anderson Valley in Boonville, California, and it's their Pinchy Jeek Barrel. Now this is a regular pumpkin and spice ale, but they've gone and put it into wild turkey bourbon barrels and let it sit for a bit, and that's when you get a bourbon barrel pumpkin ale. So I'm going to take a sniff of this, taste it, sniff again, more tasting, just to see how this compares, what the bourbon, what the wild turkey adds to it in comparison to the first beer we had from Bootleggers, another California brewery, which was just a flat out, just plain pumpkin beer. Now let's see what the difference and what the addition of the bourbon barrel aging is adding to pumpkin and pumpkin spices. Right up front there is a lot of a light sort of bourbon, sort of a mellow caramely bourbon. There's a little bit of a coconutty sort of aroma. Yeah, very deep, almost to a point of savoriness almost. I mean, it's got much more of the actual, like, the pie part of pumpkin pie. A lot of these beers have just the spice or some pumpkin, but this has that gooey sort of pumpkin pie filling going for it. Yeah, that's a lot of bourbon there. It's very thick, very viscous on the tongue. It is primarily that bourbon taste, but it isn't, and even though it has that viscousness, it isn't alcohol heavy. There's a lot of grain there. There is still a little bit of spritz to it. So it's got this weird combo where it's not a uber thick desserty sort of thing, and it's definitely not. It's more on that end than just the flat out pumpkin spice end. But it does have a little bit of undercurrent of maltiness, a little bit of grain taste to it. But definitely there's a lot more just wild turkey into this one, which I would assume, than the pumpkin and the spice. It's primarily that bourbon flavor first, foremost, and all the way through. There is pumpkin sort of notes to it, which is what makes it sort of more like that pie filling sort of taste. But the pie spice part that you would normally get that would sort of tie that up into a neat bow isn't there. So the spices are really at the back end of it, and I don't know if it will improve or those spices will come out a little more as the beer warms up, as it just sits in the air or what. But it is definitely, I would have to say, about 60, 70, probably even close to 80% just bourbon flavor, that caramely, a little bit of chocolate, but definitely that is the main hit of this one. And what's interesting is, instead of pumpkin as sort of a secondary, that secondary taste of cereal grains is definitely the bigger second sort of player in this one. Yeah, there's definitely, it's very silky, but there is a little bit of a fizz to it, and then it just goes right into this strange sort of cereal grain note hit, and then the pumpkin sort of follows that a bit after that. And I'm still not picking up much spice at all, and for pumpkin pie spices to be muted means that those other things are much stronger, and I don't know if maybe this aged a little more would add that, or if the aging has just simply overridden it at this point and more aging ain't gonna add nothing else spice wise to it. But it definitely, I would like to have seen a bit more clovey, nutmeggy, cinnamon popping, easier to find. I think that would have added something else to it. I think that cereal taste, the bourbon, that bit of pumpkin, and some spice would really have tied this whole thing up into a much more complex little piece. As it is, it's really nice, it's very interesting, But I don't think if you didn't tell somebody that it was a pumpkin beer, that quite a few people probably wouldn't even notice that this was a pumpkin beer. I mean, because I see it right in front of me, it's easy to go, yeah, there's that pie filling sort of thing. But without that, it's not showing it for me, and that's what it's missing that I would have liked to have seen here. That was in sort of, again, the Bootleggers one was more soda-y, and this one is much more bourbon-y, but both sort of missed that essential pumpkinness that would have made them recognizable as a pumpkin beer right from the get-go. But it is a very interesting beer. Very, if you're into bourbon barrel tasting, it's excellent to see that this is a specifically Wild Turkey one. That'll give you definitely a different flavor than other barrels that are being used out there. So I went a little longer than I usually do, but I just wanted to explain a few other things that popped up into my head there. So this is the Pinchy Jeek Barrel Bourbon Barrel Pumpkin Ale from Anderson Valley, and there will be more reviews and other LA beer news on my blog, beersearchparty.com. Thanks for watching, and cheers.